Welcome back to another edition of the Prepper Recon Podcast. Our mission is to bring you great interviews with preppers from around the world so you can be better informed and better prepared for everything from a hurricane to the end of the world as we know it. Today's guest has asked us to hide his identity. What I can tell you is that he is a world leader. He's a former member of the KGB and regularly attends the G8 conferences. To protect his identity, we're just going to call him Vlad P. Vlad, thanks for taking time to come on the show today.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. It's very nice for being on the Prepper Recon. In 1998, when the ruble crashed, all Russia is prepper. But have potato, have vodka, AK-47, universal healthcare, which also is vodka. So everybody okay now. But Russia, when collapsed, everybody know how to living like this because nobody having many things before. I think so is happening this kind of thing in US. Nobody can survive without iPhone for selfie and sissy purse for animal.
I'm sorry, did you say a sissy purse? I mean, are you talking about the little messenger bags that men wear? Because, you know, Vlad, that's not actually an American thing. That's a European thing. It's commonly called a European handbag. So, I mean, don't lay that on us.
No, CC purse. Every girl in U.S. carrying purse with CC everywhere and putting in teacup poodle in CC purse.
Oh, CC. You mean like a Coach purse because they have the little CC on the outside of the purse. Yeah, and sometimes they put their little like Yorkies in the purse. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Now, what's this I hear about Russia? They're raising the flag in the Crimea region of Ukraine?
Well, we're having some naval base over there, and Russia want to protecting investment.
But Ukraine's a sovereign country, Vlad. You can't just raise your flag in a sovereign country.
Oh, come on. American can telling me about sovereign state, and really is not sovereign. Ukraine currency is crashing and is asking IMF for bailout around 15 billion US. Viktor Yanukovych told me he couldn't wait to get out of Kiev. You know, we buddy for a long time. I can finding him new job in Russia. For now as roommate with Edward Snowden. But America telling me about don't get involved is really, how you say, pot calling kettle black. Your country have flag flying in like 130 country because having military base all around over there. Problem is, everybody in America know everything Russia doing, but don't know these things is doing US. They knowing what's happened for Justin Bieber, for the Miley Cyrus, but no idea what's happening for own country.
Yes, well, maybe you've got me there, Vlad, but as far as American attacking sovereign countries and everything, that's, you know, perception sort of creates reality.
Yes, well, maybe I want to grow empire, but U.S. have no right for lecture me.
But, Vlad, don't you fear U.S. intervention?
Come on now. U.S. little country. Russia like 10 times bigger than U.S. Besides, we're not seeing U.S. like good guy these days. Your people coming to Russia for free oppression. Also, I thinking U.S. have plenty problems of its own.
Oh, you're talking about Edward Snowden again. Well, that doesn't happen that often.
Well, that's how this thing gets started. Believe me, when I am in KGB, we telling everybody is for keep you safe. And they believe it. Until it's too late.
Well, Vlad, thanks again for coming on the show. It's really a pleasure. I'm so glad that you could take this short amount of time out of your schedule today to come on and talk to the folks.
Anytime, Mark. Just keeping in mind time differences is very late here. So have a good day.
Hey folks, we're starting our new segment today. We're going to start the reader mailbag. So if you'd like to have your questions or comments read on the air, you can email me at mark@prepperrecon.com. You can also go to prepperrecon.com and click the Facebook icon on the top right-hand side of the page. That'll take you to our Facebook page. There you can like us and stay up to date on Facebook with everything that we put out, new posts and that. And you can also message me there. And those comments also go into the reader mailbag. Today's letter is from Paul, and we'll always respect your OPSEC, so we will never read your last name on the air. So today we'll just call our writer Paul. And Paul writes, I wanted to thank you for your great podcasts and books. I've enjoyed both novels immensely. Being a first responder in New York City for 30 years has left me rather jaded and broken my faith. My entry into prepping came after Hurricane Sandy. That storm woke me up to the harsh reality that when the stuff hits the fan, our emergency response system will collapse almost immediately. I've come to see how stressed that system is and how unprepared it is. My station currently has 45 officers, paramedics, and EMTs. Despite what New York City has contended with since 2001, there's no food or water provisions in the event of an emergency of any duration. We typically have no spare ambulance due to mechanical failures. I started my prepping with research, which led me to your site and podcast. They've proved invaluable to me in prepping and getting the wife on board. I've read both books and eagerly await the third. I admit to having been apprehensive about the Christian content. However, I've found it to be uplifting, sort of a resuscitation of my faith. I find myself talking to God during quiet minutes of my tour and comforted by it. Thank you. I downloaded your podcast and listened during my commute. I've noticed that the audio of your guests has dropped significantly the last few weeks. I don't know if it's something predictable or not. Just wanted to let you know about it. God bless and keep up the great job, Paul R. And thanks so much for that letter, Paul. And the first thing I want to address is just to say thank you for those words of encouragement, because they really, really help. And Paul also left me a really great review on Amazon, which really helps in getting the books noticed. So if you like the books, please just take a second to go over to Amazon and leave a quick review, because it really, really does help the sales and helps to get the message out there. You don't have to write a big, long review, just a great book and click 5 stars and it really takes less than a minute to do that, and it does help so much. The Christian content, yes, I like to try to get that Christian content into the books, because I think that spiritual preparedness is the most important aspect of preparedness, and I don't feel like I'm doing a service to the preparedness community if I leave that out. Statistics prove that 10 out of 10 people, no matter how well you prepare, 10 out of 10 people still die. So we all are going to have to show up on the throne of God when we pass from this life to the next, and we're going to have to give an account of what we did and whether or not we accepted the blood of Christ to be able to be allowed into His kingdom. So that's my belief, and I get ripped a lot on Amazon for my Christian faith, and I think that it's curious, because I wonder if folks that put gratuitous sex in their books and F-bombs and GDs and all of the really, really bad language and the stuff that's just really, really bothering to me to read, I wonder if they get ripped on Amazon for that, because it seems like folks are much more tolerant of evil and much more tolerant of bad language, really torrid sex scenes and things like that, than they are of Christianity. I really appreciate Paul's comments that he was apprehensive about the Christian content at first, but that it actually led him to a place to where he's actually praying more. That's very fulfilling for me as an author, to know that God used me to encourage somebody in their faith. So I absolutely love that, and that's great. The last thing he wrote about was the call quality, or the audio quality of some of the guests. And I think that he wrote this letter right after we had 3 interviews in a row that were telephone interviews. Anytime I have to call somebody on the phone, it's always going to have a lower call quality or audio quality than the other shows. We do most of our shows on Skype, and it's always going to have a better audio quality than telephone. But some of our guests, that's the only way we can reach them. Glenn Tate's a regular on the show, and he has a full-time job in the daytime, which is about 10 hours a day, and then he has an hour commute both ways. So that's about 12 hours out of his day, and then he still has to go home and be an author and a dad and a husband and all of those other roles that he has to fulfill. So the only time he really has to do interviews is during that 1 hour commute, either going to work or coming home from work. So that's usually when we can catch him and get him on the show. And then there's just other reasons. Some folks just don't like Skype, and they just don't want to fool with it, and they want to do telephone interviews. And we don't want to not have them on the show because they don't have Skype, because I think that the content's valuable enough to just deal with the slightly lower audio quality. Of course, there's some other issues that we have that just come from not really having the proper studio equipment, and we'll hopefully be addressing that over the next 6 months. I'm going to try to get a soundboard, a mic, and some other equipment that's really going to greatly improve the quality of the podcast. So if you guys will just bear with me, that would be great. But I think that even after we do that, anytime we have somebody that we have to do the interview over the telephone, I think it's always going to be a little bit lower sound quality. And one of the things that you can do to help for that, to quicken that, is to when you're going to buy something from Amazon, if you'll go to Prepper Recon first, and you'll go to the little box on the right hand side of the page, about halfway down the page, and you'll enter the thing that you're looking for to buy into that search box and go to Amazon through Prepper Recon, the price is going to be exactly the same to you as if you would have just went directly to Amazon. But we're going to get a small commission off of that. And that Amazon money is actually the money that I'm going to be using to purchase the equipment that I need to upgrade the Prepper Recon studios. So that's one way you can help. The last thing I wanted to cover about Paul's letter is the fact that even though New York City has went through 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, they're still running on a shoestring budget. They still have very, very little in the ways of emergency preparedness stuff. So folks that are depending on the government to take care of them when the stuff hits the fan are in absolute denial, and they're really just not acquainted with the facts. And Paul's letter is just a perfect example of that you have to be able to sustain yourself without those systems of support, because, like he said, their ambulance services they just have enough to barely get by when times are good. Just the least little thing that increases the stress on that emergency system and the emergency first responder system, they can't handle anything more than just a regular normal day-to-day functions. And like he said, they can just barely handle that. They don't have any food prepared. They don't have food set aside. They don't have water set aside. They can't deal with if there were an event that created a huge influx into the medical system. They can't handle that. And this stuff is not getting better, folks. So you have to make the provisions to take care of yourself. If you're new, you're just starting out, it's overwhelming, because there's so much to do. There's so much to think about when you first wake up to, oh my goodness, the government's not going to be able to take care of me if things go bad. And it's not if things go bad, it's when things go bad, because we have Hurricane Sandys. We have earthquakes like they had in Haiti. We have tidal waves like we had in Japan. That causes all kinds of other issues. Like we're still seeing the nuclear reactors breaking down, and the radiation being released into the air and into the water and poisoning the fish. And we have these types of things that happen. So they always happen. It's not, I don't even know why we call them black swans. The black swan is when things don't go wrong. The white swan is really just your average day-to-day life. Things go wrong. Economic collapses. Ukraine right now. We just did a segment in the show earlier that was a little bit of a spoof on that, but they're really, really going through it right now, and their currency is collapsing because of all of this, and they're having to go to the IMF and beg for a bailout, and that could be us someday soon. It's happening in Argentina a couple of weeks ago. They lost 18% of the value of their currency in 2 days. The Turkish lira lost about 7% of its value since the beginning of the year. All of the emerging markets are really going through it, and this stuff happens all the time. In Russia, in 1998, the ruble absolutely crashed, and people were essentially on almost a barter network to get by. And all of these other countries are poor, and they've learned to get by with very, very little already. It's not been quite as big of a shock as it's going to be to Americans when we have to get by with absolutely nothing. Right now, you can still get a 20-pound bag of rice at Walmart for $7. You can still get a 1-pound bag of beans at Walmart for about $1. You know, the hyperinflation hasn't kicked in yet, but like it did in Zimbabwe, like it did in the Weimar Republic in the 1920s, like it did in Argentina in 2001, and like it did in Russia in 1998, fiat currencies always fail. It's not something that might happen. It's not something that once in a while it happens. It's something that always happens. So you have to prepare for these things. We always have hurricanes. We always have earthquakes. We always have wars. It's something that's been going on since the fall in the garden. The earth became cursed because man turned its back on God, and we've certainly not done anything to reverse that trend, so we shouldn't expect the curse to be cured anytime soon. So you have to prepare for those things, and people buy insurance for car wrecks, and people buy insurance for their house, and you have to insure yourself for surviving without systems of support, because it always happens, whether it's a tornado, earthquake, hurricane, or economic collapse. You got to be prepared for these things. And like I said, it's overwhelming if you're first waking up to all of this and you've never delved into prepping before. So what I've done is I put together a 7-step survival plan. And you can go to prepperrecon.com. You go to the left-hand side of the page, scroll about halfway down, you're going to see categories. And 7-step survival plan will be there. You click on that, and it's going to prioritize your prepping. So it's going to give you where to start first, you know, and you'll be able to go through each stage and make sure you've got the most important things squared away first, and then you can move on to the next level and start worrying about that stuff. And it'll keep you balanced, and it'll keep you focused, because a lot of times folks will get into prepping and they'll say, well, I need to buy guns and ammo, and they'll dump their entire budget into guns and ammo. And then other folks will say, well, I'm worried about a currency collapse, so I need to buy gold and silver. And they'll dump their entire budget into gold and silver. And then other folks will say, well, I need to have food, because you can't eat bullets, and you can't eat guns, and you can't eat gold, and you can't eat silver. So I need to buy food. And they'll dump their entire budget into long-term food. And other folks they'll worry about, an EMP, so they'll go buy solar panels, and they'll dump everything into that. And all of that's good stuff. But you got to stay balanced, and you got to prioritize it. And you have to ask yourself, what do I have to have, and then what do I want to have, and then what would I like to have, and keep everything prioritized. And the 7-step survival plan will help you do that. And then I've also got a companion podcast for each one of those steps, and we've got professionals from the prepping community and the financial community, and folks that comment on each step, and they'll give you some little pointers for each step. So it's a great thing, and especially for new preppers. And if you're a more seasoned prepper, listen to it, because a lot of times it'll bring you back to the basics, and that's one of the things that prepping is all about, the basics. And sometimes when you've been doing it too long, you forget about the basics, and it's a good tool to reel you back in for that. And then there's always something that you miss. Just doing those interviews for the 7-step survival plan to do the companion podcast, I learned new things about each step to apply to my own life. And that's really one of the main reasons I do the Prepper Recon podcast, is because I like to learn. I like to learn about all of this stuff, and I get the opportunity to have all of these experts on to talk about all this stuff. Check it out. Thanks for listening. Keep the words of encouragement coming in. I love them. I love getting your emails. I love getting the pointers about things that we can do to make the show better, things that we can do to make the book better. Keep them coming. God bless, and happy prepping. Hey preppers and patriots, American Meltdown, the long-awaited sequel to American Exit Strategy, is now available in Kindle and paperback. In American Meltdown, Book 2 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, the new president, Anthony Howe, signs an executive order banning all semi-automatic weapons. Matt, Adam, and Wesley Baer begin training with their local militia for the battle that is coming. Within weeks of the inauguration, the $700 trillion derivatives bubble pops when rates on U.S. debt skyrocket. The derivatives crisis is the final nail in the coffin of the banking system and the death of the fiat currency system in America. With the dollar gone, commerce comes to a screeching halt. While times prove to be tough for all, survival favors the prepared. Get your Kindle or paperback copy of American Meltdown, Book 2 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, on Amazon today.